do you think would have happened to the Catholic Church if the Second Vatican Council had not happened? What would the church look like right now?
I'd like to think back about the First Vatican Council, which was interrupted during its meetings by the march of Garibaldi's army to the walls of Rome, and in the interest of Italian unity. Remember that it was only 92 years before the beginning of the Second Vatican Council, 1962, that the middle part of Italy was still under the secular rule of the Pope as its earthly king. Now, with the unity of Italy in 1870, that no longer pertained. The Pope was not also a secular ruler. I think it's contributed. It wasn't Pope. I really think Pope Pius IX could not envision how this would be a blessing. But in our historical perspective, I think we can see from the Pope's, his successors, from Leo XIII until the present time, what a marvelous freedom this abandoning the secular power the Pope has given to the proclamation and leadership to all of the bishops and to all of the church and giving the message of Christ to the world. Now, I say that as an example because many of the institutions of the church, many of them come from historic times, medieval times, and so forth. The Eucharist comes from apostolic times. What the Second Vatican Council had as its challenge was to look at as many as possible of the institutions and of the developments in the modern age, and to express how these things are not inimical, not contrary to faith, but how the faith can embrace whatever is good for humanity and be part of a genuine progress, a progress that does not destroy the faith and hope and love that is inspired by them and helps them go forward. So what would the church look like if there hadn't been a Second Vatican Council? Well, one can only guess. I began my ministry as a priest before the council began, and there have been a lot of changes. Those changes, we hope, are for the better. And if they aren't, then we retouch them again. But today we can certainly go to Mass in Latin if we want. Sometimes I celebrate Mass in Latin. I know Latin, but most of the people who come to Mass on a Sunday don't. And I think it has been a great blessing for us to be able to celebrate the sacraments and the liturgy in our own language, language that we hope we can understand together, even though with the age of globalization, we're in contact with people from different cultures and different languages as well. What would it look like? Well, that's just one example, but thank you for your question.
I think I can speak louder.
Give it a try.
When it comes time to elect a new pope, as a retired cardinal, are you eligible to vote for your successor?
Until I'm 80. The cutoff point is 80, my 80th birthday, and there are 120 maximum electors. So the number of cardinals under 80 is always, well, that's my current apostolic constitution. That could be modified change, but I don't think it's likely that the Pope is going to make that change. So I pray daily for the Pope's good health. Not that I wouldn't like to have the challenge of electing a new Pope. It would be a significant, I can hardly imagine how much time I had to spend on my knees to making sure I'd be getting it right. But in any case, that's the cutoff point. So it's a question of age, not whether you're active in the diocese or in the Roman curial office. We'll surely have one or two more questions if there are, and if not, we've been very patient, so
Benvenuto a California di Nord, sono un'americana che ho studiato alla Gregoriana e ho fatto 3 anni alla Gregoriana in filosofia e teologia. Allora, benvenuto. I am curious to know, I teach philosophy and theology at an all-girls Catholic high school here in San Francisco, Convent of the Sacred Heart High School. And my question is, what are your thoughts? We had students last week tweeting the Holy Father. My friend Greg Burke, who is the newly communications advisor for the Vatican, assisted the Pope in getting on Twitter and tweeting. And related to the Second Vatican Council, what are your thoughts on the young people and the question of educating the young people in our tradition? Many of them I find are lacking, for a better word, of our faith and its traditions. And so the catechesis, which you've been talking about, of course, is extremely important, but I find the formation very, very poor. So how to reach young people outside of tweeting and having the Pope in social media, how do we reach the youth better?
Grazie per la domanda. Thank you very much. Well, as I heard that too, the Pope is on tweeted, I don't know, he certainly left me behind on this, so I don't do any of that, and I'm not sure how to go about it. The great strides in technology can be a boon to understanding the faith. They put so much, as in so many other areas of knowledge, put so much information at our disposal. But faith is not principally about information. It's principally about a person, Jesus Christ. It's principally about a plan that springs from the mind and heart, if you could use those anthropomorphic terms, of God, the eternal God, to invite us to participate in His life and His love. And words can help. I think to be educated is always a problem. Is the education and the knowledge of the faith that doesn't keep pace with the education in secular culture and the jobs we have and so forth. So that as many times we remain with a kind of a childhood catechetical knowledge that doesn't prepare us really adequately for the challenging questions that come along later in our lives. But as I mentioned, it's not simply a question of the head, it's a question of the heart. It's about knowing Jesus, and that's why it's important to spend time, a little time every day in prayer, maybe reading a passage of the Bible.